joined today by Jack Guinness. Jack, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I've been very busy. I've had a crazy 48 hours. I
Oh,
came out of
really?
DJ. Yeah, I have. I came out of DJ retirement for Chanel and Kylie. So I was on a podium DJing after Kylie at the British Museum. And then I had to go I woke up really early in the morning and I had to go and interview Stacey Dooley in Guildford. So I've had a very weird 48
That
hours.
is that is a weird thing. But I've got to start at the beginning. But there's so much I've got to explore. But did you make a conscious effort to? I'm now retired as a DJ. This is it. I'm done.
Yeah, I hung up my headphones. They're on a special kind of plaque on my wall.
I
I mean,
love it. How was the last 48 hours? It must have been quite special that to be doing
it
that.
was incredible. And what I find amazing is how kind of varied my career and my life is. And I
Yeah.
think if 14-year-old Jack could see all the weird, surreal things that I do, he'd be amazed. But I'm enjoying
So,
it.
so my,
But it,
my opening question was going to be before you took me off there was how would you describe yourself and what you do and who you are? Because obviously you're a man of many talents who is up to all sorts of stuff.
sure, I think firstly, you probably have to call my therapist to really get to the heart of who I am because it's very varied. But I've had a really interesting career. So I grew up in central London. I went to Cambridge, studied English, and then I got scouted as a model almost immediately as I
Mm,
graduated. So I had all these plans for my career and the universe took over. So I went with it and I was a model for 15 years. And then when social media kind of kicked off, I started working a lot with brands. I was always the guy on the shoot that was messing around and larking about. And so brands thought
yeah.
this is a good guy to represent us and make content. So that kind of started my world, my move into this area. And I started working with
Mm,
lots of amazing brands making content like Gucci, and then I worked a lot with GQ, and that became
yes.
a long-term relationship, and I became a contributing editor there. Um, and then I kind of had an epiphany where I realized that I'd spent my career selling things, making these amazing contacts, having a really
Mm,
incredible life that I was very grateful for, but there was a certain emptiness at the core of it. And I really wanted to look for meaning. And I'd built this limited platform. I'd built this kind of weird, amazing career. I had all these great
mm,
contacts. And I thought, how can I pivot this, not abandon it, but kind of build on what I've done and create something that isn't about me anymore, isn't about selling stuff, but is about kind of using my platform to elevate other voices. And I
mm.
do that with the queer community. So it's been an interesting journey, but if you look back, it all does kind of make sense, even though it does seem a bit weird at times.
And was there a point when it was like, actually, I kind of, you said there was a bit of emptiness. Well, it was like, I need to have a voice rather than just be kind of a showpiece, I suppose.
Absolutely. And I think it's not just about me being a voice, but about me elevating other people's voices. I realized that I was in a very privileged position. I'm a
Mm,
white cis gay guy with a famous last name. And I thought, wait a minute, I want to give access to other people. So that kind of started me on the journey of creating the Queer Bible, which is in
yeah.
essence platforming queer stories and queer voices, not just for the queer audience, but for our allies as well, so they can learn from the queer experience.
And where are we on the journey as a society, a kind of inclusion?
Yeah, I think about that a lot. Rights and acceptance are not fixed and permanent. They're always evolving, they're always shifting. You know, in my lifetime, I
Mm,
grew up on Section 28 when you weren't allowed to talk about
yes.
homosexuality in schools, it was
Yeah.
illegal. So I was kind of cut off from any information about my new chosen family and my identity. And I think for any
Mm,
marginalized group, when you're cut off from your history, it's an incredibly damaging thing to happen to you. So for me, on my personal journey, the Queer Bible is about me connecting up to my queer history and then sharing it
mm,
with everyone else. And I think we can see now in America and in England with these so-called culture wars, we're seeing repressive laws being enacted around the world. So I never take for granted the gains that we've made. And, you know, like the gay community have made amazing advances. And now we're having to support the trans community who are under attack in a
mm.
very similar way that gay people were when I grew up in the 80s and 90s. So no one group is ever safe, and one group maybe always needs more protection than another. So the work I do at the moment kind of has never felt more important, because I really want young people to know And I needed to know that not only was I not alone, not only was I not the first gay person to ever exist, but I was descended from a
Yeah.
long line of the bravest, most incredible, intelligent, brilliant human beings to walk the face of the planet. So I want kids to
Mm,
know they are descended from that lineage and that
mm.
they should be proud in it. It sounds cliche, but
No,
it's an
can I,
empowering
can,
thing.
can I kind of ask you one thing? I don't know whether it's challenging or whatever, but obviously you were in the fashion and the modelling industry. And do you
Mm.
look back on that part of your life and feel, I wish I would have had my voice then. I wish I'd been able to platform other people then. And how is, I mean, maybe I'm picking on that industry, but I do wonder whether or not um, it doesn't
Oh yeah,
help.
I think the fashion industry gets a really bad rap for being kind of really shallow and cruel. But for me, it was always a place of creativity and actually quite a safe space where especially queer people can go and express that creativity.
Mm.
Um, for me, I never look back on any of the jobs I did and think, oh, why didn't I start sooner? Because when it came to write the Queer Bible book, I
Yeah.
through that shallow, terrible world was given access to people like Elton John, who contributed a wonderful essay to the book. So if it
Yeah.
wasn't for the path that I went on, I wouldn't have
Mm.
been able to do the work I do now. So it's granted me huge access, but I never take that access and that privilege for granted. If that answers
And,
your question.
no, it doesn't. I absolutely did. And where's it going? What's next?
So we're working on quite a few exciting podcasts. We're working on a podcast. We're doing live events. I do an amazing series in a church. So my dad's a vicar. My
Mm.
uncle's vicars. My grandfather's a vicar. Every man in my family, going back 4 generations, is a vicar. And not
Wow.
only, yeah, not so I have the weight of kind of organized religion on my shoulders. Um, so, which is, quite the weight. So
Yeah.
I organise a series of events at a church in Soho where I bring in the queer community into a space that
Mm.
previously they maybe didn't feel welcome in. And we have an evenings of performances, of singing, of poetry readings, and it's
Amazing.
very it's very beautiful. And I look around the room, and sometimes gay people, queer people only come together in nightclubs or certain
Yes.
spaces where we're all cut off from each other. And in this space, there was an 80-year-old man, and there 18-year-olds. There's the whole spectrum of the LGBTQIA community, and we're all sat together in this quite sacred space, and kind of making our own little queer church. So I don't know how all
Mm.
my ancestors would feel about that, but hopefully they'd be proud of me.
No, I think it's an amazing thing. I think kind of bringing people together is what we've all discovered we need, certainly now more than ever. So, and for you personally, what's next? What's the big dream?
Gosh, I mean, it's always going to be about storytelling, and I'm not really precious about what format that comes in. So I love doing
Mm.
live events. I've been speaking a
Mm.
lot. I just got back from Oslo, where I was doing a keynote speech at a conference for business leaders on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that was fascinating. I was talking
Yeah.
to basically a room full of straight people about using the queer experience um, as a kind of guide to challenge them
And were
about
they
their identity.
receptive?
They really were. They really were. I mean, I always try when I'm doing talks to, if I'm talking about quite a heavy subject, to bring some levity and joy to it. And if I'm doing something
Mm.
that could be a bit silly, I try to bring some intellectualism to it. But
Yes.
I opened by saying that the queer community have suffered, so you don't have to. And we've learned all these lessons, and I'm going to pass them on to you to help individuals, but also help your business places, your workplaces become more representative and therefore more successful. All the work I do with companies is not about just ticking boxes or being
Mm.
charitable. It's a challenge to them. The statistics back it up that if you have a more representative, diverse, and inclusive workplace, you will make more money. Your idea
Mm.
pool will be richer. You'll connect to more consumers. So even with your evil business hat on, it makes sense to include, be representative, and also speak to a wider audience. So those are the areas that I'm
Love
focused
it.
on,
I
and
love
I'm
it. Can
still
I,
fun stuff as well. It's
I,
all
I,
fun.
can I- But can I just ask one question in terms of what you just said? I think it's a really interesting thing for the business community to over the fact that even if they justify diversity and inclusion kind of because it helps their business from the bottom line, kind of you use the word, and I appreciate it was kind of ironic, like evil kind of business, but actually is that not the best thing that could happen for D&I, for people, for companies to realise that fundamentally it will help them achieve what they want to achieve?
Absolutely. I was being very tongue-in-cheek when I said that.
I know you are. I know you are.
I am absolutely, and people don't want charity. People don't want to be included just because of a part of their identity. They don't want box ticking. They want to be there on their own merit. And I challenge gatekeepers to think really carefully about making real structural change. And there's so many fascinating studies that I've read that show that businesses, that cities, there's a glass ceiling. If you're not truly representative at the highest levels within your organization, your business, even your city, will only go so far on the global scene. So it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah. Brilliant. Listen, Jack, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure and very enlightening speaking to you. So I really enjoyed it. So thank you so much indeed, and have a lovely day.
I've loved it. Thank you so much.
Let me just stop.